Hey, welcome to Classroom 10. Here we go. Science time. It's Thursday. Hope you guys did well on your quiz yesterday. All right. So we got moisture in the air. We're going to be talking about different types of moisture today. So let's jump into it. Right at the top. We're on page 124. Go ahead, grab out your books. Get there with me. Follow along with me. Check out those bold words. Make sure you know what they mean because, hey, you're going to see them again on another quiz a little later on, and on a test a little later on. All right, moisture in the air. Isaiah 55:10-11 tells us that God planned for the living things on the earth to depend on the water that He provided. The Bible compares how water accomplishes its purposes, to how the Word of God accomplishes the purposes of God. So it's saying, hey, the water that God's given us is like His Word that He's given us. Like, it's got a purpose, it's got a function, and yeah, I'm glad we have that. Both water and God's Word. All the water in the earth follows a cycle or repeated path. Hey, just like Mrs. Gutierrez taught us. Water falls to the earth as precipitation. Remember precipitation? And then let's see, plants, animals, and humans need this water to survive. Some water returns to the atmosphere through evaporation. And she had some other ones, remember, right? I think it is transpiration, like it comes out of the plants and goes up. Most of the water in the air is evaporated ocean water. When conditions are right, the water in the air changes to droplets and forms clouds, through condensation, and the clouds then produce more precipitation, continuing the cycle. So rainfall, and then that water evaporates, turns into clouds, and rainfall again. And luckily that keeps happening and happening. It's happened since the beginning of, actually, let's see, the raining thing started, like, what's the flood? When the flood happened, rain. Check it out, let's talk about precipitation. Now, water vapor, or water in the air, cools at high altitudes. Water vapor cools around dust particles and forms water droplets or ice crystals. Gravity pulls the larger water droplets and ice crystals towards the earth and causes precipitation. Now, precipitation is any type of moisture that falls from the atmosphere and reaches the ground. Rain, sleet, snow, and hail are all types of precipitation. Dew and frost? Nuh-uh. All right. Rain forms from when water droplets in the clouds join together to form larger drops. Raindrops can be big or small. Their sizes are determined by air temperature, by the winds, and by the types of air fronts and the types of clouds. There's a whole bunch I go into, like figuring out like the size of the raindrops. Sometimes, although the air is warm enough for rain to fall as a liquid, the surface of the earth is below freezing. When this happens, the liquid raindrops freeze as they hit the earth. This freezing rain forms an icy glaze that coats objects on the ground, such as trees, branches, and fences. So check that out. So up here in the clouds, it's not freezing, so the water droplets fall as rain. Whee! But when it gets down to the earth, all the things on the earth are freezing cold, below 32 degrees. So, whee, boom, and as the water drop hits the things of the earth, like cars and the street and everything, like everything it touches that is freezing, all of a sudden when the water hits that, it freezes. So what happens back in the Midwest, they'll have freezing rain and branches and stuff like that will break off of trees because what happens is the ice, so rain keeps falling, right? It's raining, it's raining, it's raining, it's raining. And then all of a sudden, like that limb that was holding like the branch on the tree gets so weighed down from all the ice that has frozen to it from the rain, those branches break off the tree. And it can become very dangerous because sometimes they'll break, they'll fall off. When they fall off, they hit power lines, and then they knock out the power to a part of the city. And now that part of the city, if they use electric heaters, they can't heat their homes until the power guys get back out there, get that tree all like cleaned up, get the power lines back up, and get that service restored. So it's kind of crazy. That Doesn't really happen like in California. The one maybe like Northern California up in the mountains, they might get some freezing rain. Uh, Riverside, Menifee, Paris, like we don't really get freezing rain down here. Now sleet. Sleet occurs when liquid raindrops fall through the air that is below freezing. Unlike freezing rain, the drops freeze on their way to the earth and land as tiny ice pellets. If the air temperature borders on freezing, a winter storm may have a mixture of freezing rain and sleet. Okay, so with this one, it's warm enough in the clouds that it's falling as rain, and it's warm enough down at the earth that it would have been rain, but like the air in between that layer of the atmosphere and where the earth like surface is freezing. There's like a range in there where that air is freezing, so as the rain's falling, it freezes and then drops its tiny little ice pellets, which is not hail. Hail is different, and we'll talk about how they're different here in a second. I'm going to show you the picture in the book for that freezing rain. Alright, snow forms when ice crystals in the clouds join together and fall to the earth. Pretty simple, right? All those little crystals getting frozen together, then finally when it's heavy enough, boom, gravity pulls it down to earth and we got snow. The air between the clouds and the earth must be at or below freezing for snowflakes to fall, because if it's too warm, they would fall as a snowflake, but then they'd melt on the way down. The size of the snowflakes varies depending on the temperature and the amount of moisture in the air. Large, fluffy-looking snowflakes form at temperatures near 0 degrees, which would be 32 degrees Fahrenheit, or 0 Celsius, 32 Fahrenheit. As temperatures drop, the flakes become larger. So now, check out that picture of the snow right there. Alright, because of the need for cold air temperatures, most frozen precipitation occurs during cold weather. Most. Don't forget that most. But one type, hail, usually falls during warm weather. Don't forget that. It'll be on a quiz, it'll be on a test, and half you guys will miss it. Hail usually falls during warm weather. So it's warm outside, thunderstorm, ice is falling from the sky. It happens. It's happened in Riverside, it's happened down here. It happens all across the earth. Well, maybe not all across the earth, but it happens a lot, like across America, we have hail. So, in some rainstorms, the upward moving warmer air pushes the raindrops higher into the tall clouds, and there the raindrops freeze into tiny ice pellets that fall back through the lower clouds. The upward moving air pushes the pellets back up, starting the cycle again. Moisture in the clouds continues to add layers and layers and layers to that ice, to that hail. Increasing its size. And then finally, the ice becomes too heavy for the air to push it back up, and it falls to the earth as hail. Now, hailstones vary in size from as small as like a tiny little like bead, like this big, to the size of like a grapefruit. One of the times I was back in Nebraska, we had a hailstorm that was like, I think they had baseball to softball size hail. So I mean, like, baseball is this big around, softball's, probably that big around. And that was how big the hail was. So the storm was so strong, it kept pushing the raindrops back up, and then the hail would fall, and then it would push the hail back through the clouds, and then they'd get a little, so they start off like this, and they got a little bit bigger each time, 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 until finally that hail ball got to be like this big before it got so heavy that the wind could not push it up. That's some insane wind, y'all. And then finally, when those things drop, you hope that you're inside, because this kind of like hail the size of a baseball or softball, like, it's breaking bones, it's causing concussions, it could do all kinds of damage. But if you're smart and you know that kind of storm's coming, and they can normally tell with the weather forecast that there's going to be bad hail, you're usually inside. You're trying to get your cars parked under something that will stop the hail. When we were back there, it actually damaged a bunch of airplanes at the airport. So the airplanes were sitting out on the tarmac, and boom, hailstorm came through and like actually caused damage to the aircraft. Also, you know, like long-term parking, like all the cars that were parked outside, it broke windshields, it broke side windows, it broke rear windows. Like all these people's cars got thrashed. Like, and that's not including like all the dents in the car. That was just like the windows got busted out. But yeah, the whole car's got dented up too. The roof, the hood, the trunk, the sides, everywhere got dented up. And then another storm came like a day later. So what they had to do, all these people like left their car at the airport because they went on vacation somewhere or they're out on business somewhere. So when they came back, basically their cars were thrashed in the parking lot. But it was really cool because in between the storms, after the first storm came through, a bunch of workers from the airport went out with trash bags and duct tape and like duct tape trash bags over the broken windows. Because what's going to happen if the next storm comes and the rain falls? If all the windows are broken out in the cars, guess what's going to happen inside the cars? Yeah, like this much water. Like that water would have been soaking into the electronics, it would be soaking into the seats, it would be everywhere. So it was pretty crazy. Like they sent like a bunch of people out through the parking lot and they were taping up windows, like trying to protect the people's cars who got thrashed by the hailstorm. Luckily, we don't have like hailstorms like that here. Like the biggest I think I've ever seen was maybe marble size. I even think that might be a little big. It's probably more like, you know, like lemon head size. We'll go lemon head size here in California. But I've seen some pretty big ones back in Nebraska. My brother and sister-in-law, like their brother-in-law and family back in Nebraska, send me pictures sometimes when they have huge hailstorms. They're like, you know, the size of their palm, like giant chunk of ice. Sweet. Hope you guys enjoyed. Keep working on that science project a little bit every day, and you'll be able to get it turned in on time a week from today. It's due in a week, y'all. All right. Check you later.